Ari Shaffir is a longtime stand-up comedian and podcaster who actually has a brand new podcast called Be Trippin. It came out in March and really speaks to Ari's desire to see and learn about the world through conversations with his friends and some of their favorite places to have visited around the globe. On the stand-up side, he is just coming to the end of his Wrong Side of History tour, taping the special for that tour in Washington, D.C. on April 26th and 27th. Prior to that, he is bringing the tour to Austin for the Moontower Comedy Festival for an April 20th show. That's right, 420 at the Paramount Theater. That's Saturday, April 20th at 9:30. You can go to arishaffir.com to connect with him on the podcast, on social media, and yes, to buy tickets to his shows. And now, my conversation with Ari Shaffir. Here we go. Coming down in 3, 2, 1. Yep. Oh, you were just counting down with me. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Ari, thank you so much for the time. How you doing today?
That's good. You just saw my autism speak out. You're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. I thought we're counting. It's time to count.
I think it shows itself for all of us in some way, shape, or form. And for me, unfortunately, it's with my inappropriate humor, which I think is one of the reasons why I dig your comedy so much.
Yeah, thanks.
You are taking part in another Moontower Comedy Festival this year. You're in Austin a lot these days. Just how much do you enjoy the city, considering that you're getting back here at least several times a year now?
Bro, people just think I live there. People, I get texts all the time. Whitney Cummings, 7 times. She's like, I'm in Austin. You around? And I'm like, I don't live there, Whitney. I don't. She's like, oh, I'm there so much. And I'm very publicly there too. when I am there.
No, that's a good point. But your travels are well documented at this point from some podcasts that you've done in the past. Skeptic Tank, of course, and then also your current podcast, which we're certainly going to talk about here in a little bit. You Be Trippin. Big fan of this one. I decided, Ari, even though I don't normally keep these conversations sports-centric, I think you and I can have a very unique sports conversation based on your playing days and also some of the crazy stuff you've seen over time and maybe a little bit of your Dallas Cowboys fandom too, if you're up for that.
I'm up for it, but it's like I'm in a good mood, and it's just going to ruin my good mood if we talk about the Cowboys.
Well, you understand though. You're resigned to knowing that Jerry Jones is about to blow this whole thing up. That he's getting
Dak sucks. McCarthy sucks. What's he doing? When he wasn't fired the day after the game, people are like, they're going to get rid of him soon. I'm like, he's not. He'll never admit fault. He'll say it's the right call. Ugh.
Well, plus you have to deal with McCarthy looking up at that giant screen for one more season. He's got such a dumb look on his face when he looks up at the screen because he can't close his mouth either.
Yeah, he's gap-mouthed for sure. It's just like he's been a good coach over history. It's just they're all committed to this quarterback that's not the guy that puts up good regular season stats, put up great fourth quarter stats during blowouts. So you look at it as like it was like A-Rod for the Yankees. It was like, oh yeah, a lot of home runs this year. I'm like, they were all with 7-1 games. Dak just puts up blowout fourth quarter stats.
Yeah, he's like a modern version of what Matt Ryan used to do with the Falcons several years ago.
Yeah. I mean, even that game against Green Bay, it was like his overall stats were pretty good. They weren't that bad. But it was like when it didn't matter, sure.
When they had to throw the football. They had no choice but to throw the football, so he gets better stats as a result.
202 touchdowns in the fourth. But like that didn't matter. It was 38-1.
All right, that's it for the Cowboys talk. We're going to talk about other stuff now because
too much positivity in the world.
I think it's important that every human being has some sort of personal sports highlight or hopefully a couple that they can lean on throughout their adulthood. Most of us are not going to play in college. We're not going to play professionally, but we do have youth sports or high school sports to hold on to, if nothing else. For me, I had an unassisted triple play in T-ball. I kicked a goal from midfield around the same age. I topped out really early sports-wise, unfortunately. And then I hit the first three-pointer.
You playing the Special Olympics?
It kind of seemed like it with all the other kids around. I was the one kid who kind of knew what was going on. And then in junior high, I hit the first three-pointer in my junior high school's history. I was this fat 7th grader who heaved one up right after the three-point line had gotten painted onto our court. I still get credit for it. So my question for you, though, because you did play high school basketball, I think you were 6th man of the year, and the league that you were a part of, and you may have won a
His research.
championship too.
Yeah, in the private league, we had two Jewish schools, a deaf school, a Sidwell Friends. It was not the cream of the crop, but yeah, I still
Do
was
you
six
have a
million.
favorite individual sports highlight or two from your time playing basketball or another sport?
Well, I did play college golf. It was everybody was a walk-on. It was Division III. We needed six players. It was
At
pretty much
Maryland?
anyone.
Because you went to
No,
University of Maryland. Okay.
yeah, I went for 1 year. I went to Yeshiva University. It was a like religious college in New York, and pretty much anyone who had a bag, you're in. Um, and I was the worst one on the team. I believe I was the worst athlete in college sports that year. I shot in competition a 143. they they I shanked one off the tee once, did not reach the lake that was right up against the tee. And then I was like, my coach was like, you got to hit it again then. Go from there, from 4 feet up. Then threw three more in the lake. And he just was laughing at me. I'm like, coach, this doesn't give me confidence. It's so bad.
What about a sports highlight though? Is there something that you did well that you can lean on?
Okay. Okay. Let me think about that. Yeah, well, yeah. Let me think. In basketball, I played volleyball. Yeah, I got one. I was a volleyball player. I figured out how to knuckleball a serve. It was pretty dominant for a while. And then I was a practice player with the girls team. Um, and I remember one time reaching back to like grab who I thought was another practice player, but it was this lady Dahlia, and I just grabbed her boobs, and it was pretty hot. Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." She goes, "No, you didn't do it on purpose." But then later I thought about it, and it was pretty rad.
A little bit on purpose. So you were a practice player at Maryland when you were going to school there for the women's team. And you
Yeah.
were essentially serving as a big guy for these Maryland women's practices. I played against the UT women when I was at the University of Texas, and the
Oh
post
yeah.
players in women's basketball are not afraid to throw some hip around.
I believe also they have an unfair. The NCAA has investigated NCAA. They sharpen their like their elbow pads and their knee pads. There's metal in there, and I think they cut it like loose and sharpen them to cut you with.
No, like WWE style.
Kind of, yeah, yeah. So you'll be less likely to bang hard. Um, they're tough, is the point overall. Yeah, they bang hard.
You
These
see,
aren't Caitlin Cook like losers. These are strong women who can body you down.
Caitlin Clark, look, she moves around like a dude. It is impressive to watch her. I have friends who theorize that she is actually a dude playing a women's sport. I don't necessarily go that far. I'd say there's like a 0.5% chance of that being the case, but the
But
anarchist in me would love if that became the reality because of the explosive conversation that it would create around the country and world.
God, it really would. And be like, well, she set the record. Like, only because the team was good, though. Only because they played more games. If not for the NCAA appearances, she would not have beaten that all-time record.
You said you played against a deaf team in high school. What the hell was that like?
Uh, it was no one's ever asked that. So they'd blow the whistle, and then the team would keep playing because, and so that everyone would have to stop. They told us ahead of time, hey, if there's a whistle, everyone stomp, and they'll feel the vibrations. They're kind of like, oh, something's up.
Oh, the other team would have to stomp. Oh, yeah, I guess that makes
You have
sense.
to do it for them. They're like, or you can just have them run over you, foul you hard, try to steal the ball after a play's over. It gets annoying. May as well stomp. I
So
forgot
you and I
about that.
talked several years ago, and we're talking on Friday, April 12th, which is the Friday of the Masters. I feel like you told me a story about filming a commercial with Tiger Woods back in the day, back in Tiger Woods his asshole days, I guess, before his redemption, and now everybody loves him. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, me and Steve Renazzisi from the league. We had to like get him talking shit. Um, that was our job.
I talked to Steve like a couple months ago when he was performing at the mothership. Love
Oh,
catching up with him.
oh, dude, Steve rules. He's the best. I just saw
Yeah.
him last week. Yeah, our job is, and they told us it was after his dad died, Tiger, and they were like, "Don't make fun of his dad." We're like, "We weren't gonna," and they were like, "Be clean around him. Don't curse around him." He's like, a super like, okay. They flew us to Orlando because he's such a star. He's like, "I'm not flying for commercials. You guys come to me." And they rented a villa on a golf course. Anyway, he comes in, we're all waiting for him, and he's like, "You motherfuckers ready to do this shit?" And we're like, "What?" And this is before all the scandal, and we're like, "Oh, what? This guy's normal." And we're like, "Oh yeah, he grew up on Muni courses, of course." It was great. It was a lot of fun. He was like, he was supposed to play with his own man on Tiger Woods, EA, I think EA '07. And he's like, "No, I'm not playing with my own man. That's cheese dickish. No way." And so he makes a new man, drives the ball off a tee, hits this creek. He knew every course. It was pretty wild. I hit a shot that was so good. I'm like, "Oh, that's gonna be nice." He goes, "Nah, it's gonna roll in the air." He goes, "It's gonna hit the front of the green, roll off the back into the sand." And you're like, "No way, that's a good shot." Bounces, rolls, starts catching speed, rolls into the sand. We're like, "How'd you know that?" And he goes, "I've played this course 80 times." And we're like,
His freakish obsession with golf carried over to video game golf too.
yeah, exactly. I mean, he built these things to be realistic. And so when he shoots with his like a new man, he rolls it up, bounces 3 times, goes into a creek. He goes, "This creek's not even in play. It's 200 yards out." I'm like, "Yeah, Tiger, welcome to us." That's how new men play. 200 yards is in play.
Oh
Yeah, it was
man, I love what you're doing with the new podcast. I was a fan of Skeptic Tank back in the day, but I understand how sometimes you grow beyond something. But you be tripping plays into your love for travel, and also you having conversations with your friends about some of the cool places that they've been. And I'm gonna keep this sports oriented by asking you about something that I feel like I heard you talk about on Skeptic Tank years ago. I don't remember the Asian country, but you talked about a sport that will probably never be legal here in the US in our lifetimes. There will be some backroom versions of this happening, but you actually went to a cockfight
fights. Oh yeah.
somewhere over in Asia. How was that?
It was so fucking cool. It was East Timor. It's kind of a new country. I think it was 2001 or two it was founded. I think two. And the general of the army has his own court. It's so legal there. And I was like so worried I didn't realize this. And I was like, I had to find it. It was like they were like, it's behind like the market. And I'm like, I looked all over, couldn't find it. And then I was like, had my moped, I'm driving away. And then I'm like, I saw an old man like half a mile out just holding a rooster. And I'm like, he's got to be going. And I just watched him walk past me. I pulled over, watched him walk past me. And I whipped my moped around and I drove up like, a quarter mile ahead of him. And I just looked at him. I let him catch up slowly. And then he turned into an alley. I'm like, it's got to be in there. And there was like dozens of roosters. Everybody, it was so cool. And I wanted to take a picture, but I'm like, no. They took me in because I'm a giant fucking white guy, 6'3". So it's like, they're like, you've never seen this tall before. And then I was like, hey, I can't take pictures of this, can I? And they're like, I mean, if you want, why not? And I'm like, well, because the law. They're like, the general is right over there. He said, it's totally fine. What do you mean? Why would it be illegal? I'm like, I live in a different world, man. I don't know. I don't know. It was so cool. It wasn't as brutal as you think. It's not like dogfighting. You barely even see it.
Okay. Yeah, I was
So
about to ask if it like gets a little bit gruesome at times, but it doesn't do that necessarily.
it gets a little bloody, but like so they have the roosters. The roosters will naturally like fight at each other. And so they take a razor blade and tie it to one of their like claws. And so when they go at each other like this, one razor blade is hidden. So the roosters don't even understand what's happening. They're like, "Oh, I guess I lost that fight." But like, "Whoa, I'm getting lightheaded," and they're just cut up. But you can barely see it. There is some blood sometimes, but barely see it. And then one rooster will just like pop over, and it'll be like, "What happened?" And he's like, "He's done." And then the owner of the winner gets to eat the loser.
See, okay, I remember you saying that detail on that Skeptic Tank podcast, which is a pretty cool trophy for the victor, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's not. I mean, it's like, listen, we're gonna eat food. How do you? What? Who cares how it's killed?
There's only one other sport that I've heard that does something similar. Have you ever heard of Buzkashi before? It's a
Uh-uh.
sport that's popular in the Middle East. It's essentially polo, but with a goat carcass. And it's rival tribes will come together. I think it was showcased in one of the Rambos, Rambo 1 or Rambo 2. But rival tribes will come together and they'll play this game of goat polo where you're trying to get the goat carcass in a circle on one end of the other. And the winning team gets to take the carcass home and have a feast in their
Wow.
village. And the losing team, I guess, goes home hungry.
Damn. I mean, there's something better to that. It's you're not just wasting it. I was like BJ Penn when you lick the blood off his gloves. It's the closest we got in our country.
Turn it into blood sausage, maybe, is the step beyond that. I don't know.
It was so cool though. It was just the cool, and everyone's gambling. Everyone's yelling out, two, white, I got white, I got red, I got red, I got white. And then it's like, I mean, they use US currency there. They do it in Puerto Rico too. My friend told me that's where the episode was. He went to one in Puerto Rico.
Hmm.
Like, but like it's just like they use America, so it's like $1. And they're like, no way, 50 cents. And you're like, okay, fine. I think I lost like $20 over like 3 hours, but it was so worth it. I won like one bet.
which is
Um,
which is like $1,000 over there. I thought I was going to have a chance to see it in Cabo San Lucas of all places because they advertised someplace that was for cockfighting, but I looked it up on Mexican internet and nothing popped up, unfortunately. So I guess I needed to ask around a little bit more.
That's the problem with using, like, you like cultural differences to go to other countries. We rely on Google Maps
Yeah.
and Google way more than other countries do. And so they're like, well, where is it? It's not on here. Like, to America, that means it doesn't exist. And to them, it's just like, ask somebody, it's over there.
The cockfight doesn't have at least 4 stars on the 5-star rating system. It must
I'm
not be
not
a good
going
enough
to,
cockfight.
dude, it was so cool. I forgot about it now. You reminded me. It was just the coolest. And they had these bookmakers. They're sitting down in these little like kids' chairs, and they're like looking at all the roosters, making like the odds and writing everything down. They was like, remember those old CD cases where you'd like a booklet of CDs? They had that for razors, and people would like look through them, and like they go and they get one. I remember one guy licking the back of a razor and was like, "This is it," putting on, and I was like, these guys are so weird. Cool.
So
I love.
they're just sizing up these roosters. They're sizing up these cocks to see which one should have the advantage in a given fight.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the big ones almost always win. So it was just like, whatever. I'll bet on whoever you guys want me to. I just want to root for somebody. 50 cents. That's fine. You're just like, it's an excuse to pass out money to the community too, for
Yeah.
like a fifth world nation, you know?
Oh, that's a good call. You're actually performing some charity in the process.
Yeah, you can't give out. It affects the economy wrong if you just like give money to beggars, but if you just like throw it into like businesses, then it's a great.
So you were traveling internationally again this summer, if I'm not mistaken, going over to Australia specifically so you can participate in something called State of Origin. I've never heard of this before, but you keep calling it a sport. What the hell is State of Origin?
State of Origin is a series. It's not a sport. It's
Okay.
rugby. And I don't know all the rules of rugby, but I was in Guatemala last year, a year ago, December, and this Australian guy at my hostel was telling me about rugby and how he was just telling me about the rules and stuff. And I was like, okay, interesting. And then like he was saying like this is the sport. So the Australians are the best ones. New Zealand, arguably. Um, the West Indies are big. It's just not big in America, right? London, I mean, England has big teams, but all these great players play like how we'll rent out Messi here. He's not American. We'll rent him out and have him play here in soccer. So they do that with Australian rugby players. They rent them out. They're playing all over the world. They're the best ones. They're playing for the England teams and and the Jamaican teams and whatever. They all come home to play a 3-game series, North versus South. I think it's New South Wales versus Queensland, but it might be a different one too. And it's a 3-game series. So these guys are like teammates in England or in wherever, and now they're enemies because you're North, I'm South, and they're punching each other in the face. It's wild. And so the way he sold it to me, I'm like, I'm gonna build my tour around that in Australia. And he goes, everybody comes out. I want to go to the one in Brisbane, but Brisbane's game 3. And if it's 2-0, it won't really mean anything. So I'm going to the one in Sydney.
So have
Uh,
you taken part in a State of Origin then, or is this based solely on the guy that you met in Guatemala that you
yeah, he just told me about it. So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna watch. So it's Sydney is one game, Brisbane is the other home game, and then they have a neutral site. Last year was Perth, and this year's Melbourne. But yeah, I'm going to the one in Sydney. But I guess I have to root for the Brisbane ones because those are the bogans. Those are the cool ones. I don't know. I'll figure it out.
As part of your We Be Trippin podcast, you talked to Normand about Australia. You talked to Andrew Santino about, was it Sicily or Sardinia?
Sicily, yeah. You be tripping. Yeah, Sicily.
I'm sorry, You Be Trippin. I said We Be
Yeah.
Trippin. You Be Trippin is what it is. You've traveled so many different places. Is there someplace that you haven't been yet that you really want to go?
Morocco's really calling me. I almost
Heard
went.
great things about Morocco.
Yeah, I almost went after I was in Paris for some writing class, and then I was like, I just kept seeing all these direct flights to Morocco, and I'm like, I want to go, but I had to get home, and I'm like, I wish I didn't have to get home. We should just hop on a plane for $90 and just be in Morocco the next day.
When was
Uh,
the Paris writing class?
a year ago in the summer,
Okay,
summer.
so this is recent. What did you learn in that class?
It was like a memoir writing class. This writer, Rolf Potts, who's become friends with him. He's been trying to get me to go for a long time. So it worked out with schedule pretty well. I loved it.
He was on Skeptic Tank previously, wasn't he?
Bunch of times. Yeah, he rules. He'll be on the new one too. I think actually he's coming to New York next week, so he'll be on then. But like yeah, he rules and he's just like, he's like, I'm a legitimate writer. I can help you if you want to write some sort of like, you know, book of stories or something about your travels. Like I can help you. So, but he was like, come take this class. It was so fun. It was so fun. Just like hanging out there, soaking it all in, smoking and cigarettes in cafes. I don't even smoke. I'm just figuring out how to roll. But you can smoke around babies, which is extra hot. You know, he's just like right next to a baby. It's like, what's up? Nice baby. They're like, thank you. It is a nice baby.
Smoking on babies and smoking on airplanes, things that are no longer allowed in 2024 that weirdly I romanticize. Now, I used to smoke cigarettes. I don't anymore. But for some reason, if I were given the opportunity on an airplane, I would smoke a cigarette.
Yeah, that would be cool. I was on a plane with Joey Diaz once and he lit up a vape. I was like, what are you doing? He just like, he goes like this. He goes like a doctor. I'm like, damn, in his seat. I'm like, what are you doing? He doesn't care. Yeah, there's certain places where it's like romantic to smoke cigarettes. So I was like, when I went to Paris, I'm gonna get into it. I bought a pouch when I landed, and I'm like, let's start smoking. And I would just smoke and write at cafes. It was so cool. But I really want to go to Morocco. I want to go back to Southeast Asia too. I want to like go to Laos and Philippines. I don't know, there's a bunch of places. But what about you? Where do you want to go? Where's calling you?
Unfortunately, I have not been enough places in my life. I don't have a ton of regrets. One of them is probably not traveling more when I could. I've got a 9 and 7 year old now, which obviously makes things a little bit more difficult. I've been
For
to
sure.
Italy and a couple different spots in Mexico. We're going to Costa Rica in May, which I'm pretty excited about. We're going to be staying on the coast there. I have no experience though, so I'm essentially relying on the people that I'm going with who have been there before. But as far as places to go, Spain, Portugal, the Croatian coast.
Ooh, I went
I'd
there.
love to go back to Italy. And I've heard so many good things from people who have gone over to various Asian countries, whether you're talking Japan, China, the Philippines, Vietnam, that given the opportunity, I would definitely do something like that as well. So I guess
You can
that's the
do
long
it.
way of saying that
You
there's a lot of places that I want to go.
can plan it a year out. You can do it. I know you're professional. I know whatever, but like you can do it. You can pre-record a couple and like really tell everybody now, like a year from tomorrow, I'm going. So let's start planning this and give me like 3 weeks off.
I
You
like
know?
that. That sounds like a motivation that you give a lot of people who
Because
love
it's like I
to
can't do it. I don't have time. I don't have money. You have money. You're successful. You're needed. It's not like you're leaving. You're just like work with me on this a little bit. I'll report from a soccer game in Vietnam. You know, it'll be cool. You can tax write off it. You know?
from a cockfight in Myanmar.
Yeah, exactly. Cover it. Exactly. Something. Exactly. Dude, I'll give you some tip. Oh, here's one tip for Costa Rica. Pull over at any fresh fruit stand and just try some fruit you've never had.
Okay.
Or even like a pineapple. You've never had it that sweet before.
So one of the questions that you ask your travelers on You Be Trippin' is something that you want somebody else to know before they go there. So that's my one thing to know.
It's really cheap and it's so good. And you'll try something like, what is that? And you don't know if it's a citrus or like a big seed or a meaty fruit. You have no idea. And they'll just like, you just kind of ask. And then any one of them pull over, stop for the uh, coco frio, like cold coconuts. They'll chop it right there for you. I mean, you're going to do some stuff. Whoever's planning it's going to like plan it out. But that's one you can be like, hey, fruit stand, pull over. You know, you don't have to plan for it. They're everywhere.
It's in the memory bank now. Whenever I see it, anytime that I see it, I'm gonna insist that we stop so we can get some fresh fruit in Costa Rica. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Stretch your legs.
I thought about you yesterday because we had a death happen in the world that really tested the limits of people's willingness to virtue mourn. That being OJ Simpson dying. Brad Williams had the best tweet in response to OJ's death. I'm not even going to reread it. Interviewed him yesterday, so people will have to stay tuned for that episode coming up here in a couple of days. But I thought about you specifically because there is a weird movement happening in comedy right now that insists that cancel culture is not really a thing in stand up. But there's people that I think about that suggest otherwise, that even if you don't necessarily get canceled permanently, that you get knocked down really hard and it takes a serious effort to get back up. And of course, I'm talking about what happened following Kobe Bryant's death and the tweet that you put out in the world of shit that you had to eat as a result of that. What was that like? And is it something all these years later that you regret having done because of how much more difficult it made things for you?
No, I don't regret it. I think it ruled. If the viewers don't know, I killed Kobe Bryant a few years ago, and the people reacted angrily because of his death that was caused by me. Um, no, I thought it was awesome, dude. I actually they gave me a lie detector test on Legion of Skanks to see if I regret it, and I'm like, no, I don't regret it. It ruled. It fucking made everyone so mad. It was so awesome. And then they were like, oh yeah, he's not lying. Um, yeah, you got to be yourself. I live great. I pay my rent off comedy. I eat any meal I want. I buy beers at Yankee Stadium now without having to worry about the cost. Like, and with that comes like some pros and cons. Like if you run a Chinese food restaurant and some guy was like, I want 7 soy sauce packets. You only give him 2. It's like, all right, we lost a little on this guy. But overall, you're running a great restaurant. So sure, the backlash, the death threats, the calling in comedy clubs and threatening the lives of females, sure, that's just standard Laker fan stuff. They're a trash organization. They're a trash organization, and they feel like you should threaten women. What a great way to prove that a guy wasn't a rapist, is to threaten the lives of women. Oh, that's so quality. Dude, yeah, I expose them. I love it. If I can expose someone, there's still comedians who are still angry about it. Comedians years later. And I'm like, I don't know what other tweet you can remember years later. No regrets is my point. I loved it. Yeah,
So,
that cancel culture thing's weird because I think people are arguing on different definitions of words. So when they say Nazi, you know, or fascist or cancel, it's like people don't match up, or hurtful. It's all because like you're talking about one definition, someone else is talking about another. So you're not really talking, you know? My dad is a Holocaust survivor. So if you ask him what a Nazi is, it's different than these, Gen Z kids who just means it's someone who's rude, you know? Um, Goat used to mean one person.
yeah.
And there's like hundreds of goats in every industry, you know? So it's like, oh, you're talking about a different definition of something. So you're not really communicating. So cancel to some people means slight setbacks. To others, it means you can never work again. Well, it's like, well, no one's never working again.
Well, virtue mourning is the same thing. You can't be this sad over every random celebrity that dies.
God, you're just trying to show that you're big. Shut up.
Exactly.
Making it about yourself. It's so lame. It's so lame. And when comedians do it, it's so unfunny. Oh, I'll miss you. I'm like, ugh, you're a comic. Make a joke. Make a joke. At least try. At least try to make a joke. Shut up.
Do you consider Jordan the best basketball player of all time?
I hate the term best. I think if you're going to have that argument, you got to start and end with Cliff Robinson. He was the only guy that really normalized the headband. He wasn't making a big deal of it.
And I think he's the first former NBA player to get into the weed game too, the legal weed game, like 10
Really?
years ago. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I interviewed him. I want to say it was in Oregon, maybe, but I interviewed him. It was less than a decade ago. It was maybe 5 or 6 years ago, but I interviewed him about it. It was a really interesting conversation. He was a dude that had a very level-headed perspective on things.
I don't know anyone who even would know the reference Cliff Robinson besides you, Trey.
Didn't he?
It's awesome.
Laser's great from back in
Great.
the 90s and 2000s.
100%. Unheralded. What was those hustle points? He was like a hustle points leader.
Yeah.
All of that goes to like the best is like, I don't know. I heard Bird talking about this recently. Like you just can't even say it. It's different times, different, as great as Babe Ruth is, he didn't have a training regimen. He wouldn't be able to compete today. So you have to go by, their game. I mean, today's NBA there's no defense anymore. So even 5 years ago, NBA, it's a different game.
Basketball is a shell of itself from when you and I were really growing up in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. And unfortunately, it's a result of what they did with drafting high school guys and eventually the one and done system where you ruined your developmental program. That's one of the reasons why the NFL is so good, is because college football, while it's an exciting product on its own, also serves as a springboard for the NFL, where fans know who these guys are when they turn professional. The NBA and college basketball especially are just complete mishmashes now,
It's
especially in
also,
college where there's so much player movement that you're having to relearn a half to three-fourths of your roster every year. And the NBA, unfortunately, suffers too because they've fallen too in love with analytics. So it's all threes and layups and dunks now.
dude, remember when it was, and also this is why the European players are lapping us, because they work on fundamentals every day. And we just
Absolutely.
want to showboat every day because we'll get a contract, a shoe contract if we
Yeah,
have
the
a great.
hero game that's really emphasized at the AAU level.
Yeah, and it happens in stand-up too. Everyone's trying to create these crowd work clips, and you go see them, and you're like, "Oh, these aren't that good." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I was showing you a highlight reel before. This
Yep.
isn't like you're at a one out of 10 pace." But it's also like, you remember this, when if your team won and scored over 100 points, you got a free sandwich from Chick-fil-A or something.
Yeah.
And now it's like 138 to 127 is pretty standard, and you were cheering, come on, get a few more points, because it's tough to get 100. Not anymore, and the other team knew it. They'd see it. They're like, we're down 15, but like, let's hold these guys. Screw this fan base. Let's hold them. Let's not give them a taco. And it was like something to play for. It was fun. Now you get 100 in the third quarter.
Yeah, it's like 150 is that number now. And at some point, it turns into an all-star game.
Exactly.
Yep.
I remember
I've seen you make jokes 3 times live, I think, at the old Cap City back in the day.
Cool.
Before you taped your Juice special, A Creek in the Cave. That was hilarious. And then the Wrong Side of History tour. I saw that set at the Mothership a few weeks back. You're actually taping that in DC on April 26th and 27th. How excited are you to get this special out to the people now, Ari?
I'm excited. And I'm doing it in DC because, well, you saw a lot of it's like, don't vote, don't care. And so I'm like, I want to do this in Washington where you guys are more into this than anywhere. I just overall, I think everyone's way too upset about stuff that doesn't concern them.
So you're going to be doing the Wrong Side of History tour at the Paramount on April 20th then, correct?
Yeah, you pretty much saw that hour. It's like my last run before I tape.
Are you doing anything specific to 420, considering the unofficial holiday?
Yeah, grinders for sale. I'll just have a low attention span in my audience, I assume. I'll be a little raspier voice. That's about it.
They're probably already going to come in pretty blazed, regardless of whether it's April 20th or not,
Yeah.
Well, Ari, I really appreciate the time today, man. I'm a longtime fan. You and I spoke on one other occasion. It's a real pleasure getting to talk again. And I am not going to be at the show, unfortunately, on Saturday. I did not act fast enough to get the tickets that I like to sit in for the Paramount. But
but you'll come to the next one.
I'll get to the next one. No question about that. He is Ari Shaffir. Check him out at Moontower Comedy Festival. It's going to be at the Paramount, doing one of the 420 shows at the Paramount. Go to austintheater.org to snag the tickets that remain. Ari, thank you so much for the time today, man. Best of luck with things.
Yeah, nice seeing you always. I love that book you have that you never read behind you. That's great.
I've read a few of the stories.
Okay. You got to doll it up.
Thanks to Gentleman Jesus for the intro and outro music. Hear more of his work at gentlemanjesus.com. Thanks to you for hanging out. For more of the show and to connect on social media, visit booksonpod.com. We'll talk to you next time. Books on Pod.